Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast that every 2 weeks we come together on this podcast to talk about an anime that we've recently watched, and then turn our discussion over to our comment section and let you continue the discussion. We recently watched No Guns Life, the first 12 episodes, and to talk about it, I needed the help of my co-host. First off, we have the Vash the Stampede to my Trigun, Jeremy. How you doing, Jeremy?
Great. I'm doing pretty good. Very, very, very busy the last few weeks, but I did actually manage to work in a little tiny bit of time to play a game. I haven't done that in quite a while, but I went back to No Man's Sky and gave it another shot. It's been like 2 years since I played it, and they have come out with a ton of different patches, but the big one for me was this Origins change. And there's now like base building and crafting, and it's really cool. It's kind of itching that Subnautica miss. Like I want it really bad, and I can't have it because I won't play the early release. So No Man's Sky will have to do.
All right. We also have the Barrett Wallace to my Final Fantasy VII, Jason.
I'll take it. That was a good
Not
character,
nearly as bad as usual.
Yeah, besides losing myself in Minecraft, which is, they're coming out with new patches, by the way, if you haven't seen the new stuff. Sure looks excited.
He's over there vomiting a little bit.
Right. Troy and I have been playing Squadrons. And, this is 2 games in a row from EA that I haven't hated them for. And so they're making me take another look, and I love it. I think not offering DLC with this one is a mistake, and they should rethink that.
Nickel and dime me, EA, curse you!
Nickel and dime me, please! But the feel of nostalgia from the old DOS X-Wing mixed with bringing it to life in VR has just been amazing. Like, being able to make a K-turn in these things in VR is probably some of the most thrilling VR that I've played in a long time.
It's cool.
Yeah, I'm a Squadrons junkie already. I really hope they do to change their mind and decide to do more. It's a dream come true for me. I played that old X-Wing game, and obviously the people who made this game were like, we love that game. How can we bring it to today? It shows all over the place. It's full of Star Wars Easter eggs. It's perfect for me. Yeah, I'm heaven.
Come November, December, we're gonna have to do like a Baka squad thing because I'll be able to finally join you guys.
Love it.
Do not worry, dude. I'll be there. I'll be there. And my name is Troy. The only thing I've been doing, me and my wife started watching Hannibal. And just because we watched it Invaded, I was like, man, October's coming up. It's time for some scary stuff, and serial killers seem kind of topical right now. I really liked it Invaded. So we started watching Hannibal. The only problem is that the food looks delicious, and they don't always tell you when it shouldn't. Sometimes Hannibal just serves someone breakfast, and you're like, "Are those mushrooms or small intestine?" Oh, but Matt Mikkelsen, he's fantastic as Hannibal Lecter. We've also been watching like the regular Silence of the Lambs, and Hannibal Lecter. What a great character! Like evil, but also has like a moral code of, I'm going to eat the rude people of the world to make the world a better place. He's fascinating. Like, not like, oh, I want to be his friend, but as characters go, man, that is a fascinating character. I think we're good. Let's talk about the anime No Guns Life. Non-spoiler review to start with. Jeremy, you picked it. What'd you think?
I really liked it. I thought it has a nice mixture of noir and comedy, and it just really pokes fun at noir, I think, in a way that is still respectful of noir and still enjoyable, I would guess, for people who are noir fans. But I can still enjoy it, even though I'm not. And the world is really cool. I mean, it's a nice mix of cyberpunk and, you know, I don't know. It's really cool. I definitely would recommend it.
All right, Jason, what'd you think?
I enjoyed it. It was a bit cheeky as far as the noir part, but what I was really drawn into was this world of after war. You've got this government and corporation trying to vie for control, and it wasn't so much like high tech cyberpunk, or not cyberpunk, or yeah, cyberpunk, but it was, people trying to rebuild, and what do you do when you lose a limb in this kind of world? And the characters were interesting. I actually found the side characters more interesting than the main characters, but it's definitely worth a watch.
I am enjoying it for the most part. I really love the noir stuff. That's just my jam. I always has been.
Love the main character, do you?
Oh yeah, the design.
I don't love the design. Look, there's a battle coming between me and Jeremy about the character design. We've been arguing about it since he started watching the anime. I started watching it first. We had to delay recording this episode. I started it and then stopped. Came back, tried to get like fresh eyes on it. Got pissed off again. Jeremy vehemently disagrees with me.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna have to talk that out.
Yeah.
But story-wise, I enjoy most of the mysteries, most of the humor's working for me. I do think that it's also trying to do some of that craziness that Dorohedoro does so well, but it's taking itself too seriously to land it like Dorohedoro does. And that kind of ties into that whole character design too, for me. But other than that, and maybe a few slow parts, I found it mostly enjoyable. All right. Let's go on to the opening and closing. What do you guys think about those?
They're okay. The music didn't really catch me on either the opening or closing, and the visuals were okay. The closing was definitely better than the opening, in my opinion. The art of the closing was really neat to watch.
What's it?
It was.
Liked it in no way, not interested in it at all. Okay.
No. I in fact, if we had done this earlier, I probably would have said the same thing.
Well, if we had done it earlier, it wouldn't have been recorded, so no one could prove you wrong.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, what do you think of the opening closing?
Let's see if I remember. I thought it was. I really enjoyed the intro. The outro music was. It was. I don't know. It just sounded like he was saying "I'm a fool" over and over again, and I just I couldn't groove with it. Which was kind of funny because Tanya actually, this is one of the few anime where she's watched the whole thing with me. And every time it came on, I don't know if she liked it so much just because it made me cringe every time, and that's funny, or if she genuinely liked it. But she seemed to like the outro. I definitely liked the art in it, the outro and the intro. I thought the intro was really cool because it had like the images that you would then see at the end of the intro on the corkboard behind him. So it's like you get this little snapshot of every single not account, but every single case. Thank you. Every single case that he takes and the characters from those cases. And it's just a little bit to kind of sate your appetite and tease you a little bit, make you curious. I like that.
Yeah, I found the musical enjoyable enough to watch it almost every single time, opening and closing. Plus, that gives me a chance to like check my phone or go get a drink. but I did like the music. I never felt a need to skip it or like, oh, here's this again. And I really liked the visuals of the ending and the visuals for the opening. I thought were a cool sneak peek of stuff.
Almost as if you had dogs.
So many dogs. And two of them are
all of
and chihuahuas. You know, I don't really call them. I don't consider them dogs. They're more like
rats
that we allow in our house.
Rats without voices.
Yep.
That shake. All right. Let's go on to our spoiler section. So everything we have said so far has not been a spoiler. Everything we're about to say will be. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is your time to jump off the train. Plus, there will be a very big argument between me and Jeremy coming out. I'm overhyping it. I'm literally just gonna say like it's subjective. This is my thought. I don't care what you think, Jeremy.
I was just gonna start playing.
Jeremy cares what you think is the problem, so he's going to try.
That's right.
convince you
I'm going
to
to change
his
your
side.
mind, man. That's my goal.
I'm gonna be honest with you. This is gonna deflate some of the hype we've built. I actually think you have really good points. They just don't work for me.
See, now
All
I'm
right.
unsure of myself. Okay.
All right. Spoiler section. Yeah. So spoiler section has been dropped. This world it's a cyberpunk noir. There are cyborgs that fill this world. They are called the Extended, and it can be as far as like having machinery put on top of your limbs or your body to help you out, or having limbs or body parts replaced. Jason, you had mentioned it requires a subbrain, which is like
So all of the parts, whether it be on top of the skin or under the skin, in order to make them function, they can't directly connect it to brain because it'll put too much stress on you. So you get this thing called a subbrain installed, and that's what delineates someone from being extended to not extended and just having a prosthetic. Is do you have the subbrain installed?
Yeah, and if you're a fan of BattleTech, it's the diagnostics interpreter computer. Same thing for a mech. So
Jeremy,
cool.
I hope there is a fan of BattleTech.
I hope so, too.
It's like I got that reference.
Yes.
Oh, that okay. I understand.
It's in the tech manual.
In this world, they recently got done with a major war, and the private corporation that controls the cybernetics, the enhanced parts, basically now rule the world. There is a government, there are government factions and stuff, but they all answer to the corporation. So
Rule the world or rule the city?
The city, as far as I know, I don't know what's
the
going on.
The world as we've been presented it so far.
Yeah, because what's interesting is we never find out like who they went to war with or why.
I didn't mean a globe. I meant as in the story world that
right. But those are questions I would love to get more context to build the world.
Me too. Yeah. Also, I should clarify. I thought this was a 2 seasons and you're over anime. Apparently, there's consideration that there may be a 3rd season. So I'm guessing that whatever it's being made from, the books extend much farther. I did not realize that.
We start off with a very noir scene, a dark office with a private. He's not an investigator, but
he kind of is.
Kind of is.
He resolves issues.
He's the resolver, right?
He's the resolver.
He takes private jobs. It helps people.
Moonlight coming in.
Yeah, moonlight comes in the window. A slow fan spinning above him.
Lights a cigarette.
Yeah, smokes a cigarette. I actually it's part of the story. It's part of the character. I was surprised how much he smoked. I'm like, I don't think I've seen a character smoke on television this much in a long time.
Right. Yeah.
So that's really frowned upon these days. But they gave him a reason. And if you're a robot body, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And this is our main character, Juzo. And he starts with his, very noir internal narration, like, I'm here to, help people. And, he's in the dub. He's got a very grizzled voice that really fits the theme. I don't know how his actual voice sounded, Jeremy.
In the sub, he's got a really nice deep voice too. He sounds like what you would expect from a noir detective.
This is Juzo, our main character.
I was really hoping in this scene that a woman would walk in. He's like, and then this dame walked in.
Yes, that would have been great.
So we're going to talk about his character, and then me and Jeremy will have our character design issue, and Jason, absolutely welcome to join in. But Jeremy, what did you think of the character?
I really like Juzo. He's not my favorite character in this anime. There's another character that really I just enjoyed when she was on the screen more, made me laugh. But I thought for his role, he did a really good job portraying that noir detective. As I mentioned before, I'm not a real big fan of noir, but I love how they took that detective and the detective himself is so tropey. I mean, like in the noir genre, the detective is very tropey. Like, you know exactly what to expect. He's going to be deep voiced. He's going to be super confident. He's going to know everything, be 10 steps ahead of whoever he's talking to, and he's already deduced everything and seen it all, and he's almost like bored with the world. Yeah, exactly. Yes. and so having this guy be that role, but then he's got literally a revolver for a head I don't know, it relieves some of that stress to me, and the things that they do with him for like having him smoke so much, right? He's a smoking gun, which you mentioned it early on, Troy, in the chat, and you're like, oh my god, he's a smoking gun. And
He's literally a smoking gun guy.
I love that. It's so great.
That really greases my cylinders.
Yeah.
And he
exactly.
loves gun puns as well.
Yes, he does. Yeah, and I mean, like for a massage, there's this old man that literally like pulls the revolver part of the gun out, the chambers, right, and starts cleaning it basically and rolling the chambers. I don't know. It's just it relieves some of that too dense drama for me, for my tastes. The way that he's presented, and yet he's still consistently trying to be that character, and that's, I think, what I find the most intriguing about him as a character, is that he's still, I'm gonna do my duty and I'm gonna be tough and reliable and all of this, but at the same time, he just looks so silly. It's really endearing.
Snubs my barrel.
Yeah, exactly.
Jason, what do you think?
This character actually kind of embodied for me what I wanted from the story of Violet Evergarden. Even though Violet Evergarden was a good anime on its own, the story of Juzo is very much, you have someone that was turned into a weapon for war, and war's over. What do they do? And this reintegration into society and having to deal with that past and deal with being a weapon among normal people, I thought was a really great twist on top of the detective work. Because throughout the entire anime, most people that he runs into for the first time, they're very shocked by his, revolver head. I did think the revolver choice was weird. I think it would have been better if the handle wasn't there, because they talk about the gun pair, which we'll get into later. But I did enjoy that aspect of him having to try and find his place, because they mentioned a couple times that he distances himself from everyone around him because he doesn't want any attachments, because he knows at some point he's going to have to be disassembled, or he's technically an illegal piece of property that's walking around. So there's a lot of interesting facets to this character, and I did enjoy going with him in this story.
Despite my complaints about his design that we'll get into, I actually really like the character Juzo. I love Norse stuff. I love the movie Brick. I love Sin City. I love Humphrey Bogart just as a human being. Unless he did something else. I don't know Humphrey Bogart. I just like his movie. So yeah, bring in a character who's noir, like, give it to me all day.
He didn't have a fedora though. So
that's true, but it would have covered up his awesome gun.
He did have a trench coat though, so it was close enough for me.
That's true.
That's true.
And
he sewed it himself whenever it would get ripped.
My one issue, I'm kind of like on the opposite, where is Jeremy's like, hey, that noir, which is not my thing, kind of the tension gets eased because the anime stuff comes in. I'm like, I could have used less of a battler, I have a super punch guy. I don't want that in my noir detective. I just want a guy who goes around thinking things through. So that didn't really work as well for me, but it is an anime, so it's not the worst. It's fine. I for the most part really like the character. Yeah. So now let's talk about designing a character with a revolver for a head and dinosaur teeth.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. I will, like I said before, Jeremy and me have already talked about this some, and he's made very good points about like thematically why it works and all this stuff, and that's fine. My big issue is that the design is very abstract. It is literally, he literally has a gun for a head. There's the handle, there's the hammer, there's the trigger, all part of the head. So while as much as there can be an explanation built into the story and stuff, he's the only really abstract character. There is another character with a gun for a head who's the same unit, so I don't really consider him another But every other robot cyborg we see is very functional in their design. No one has a megaphone for a head, even though there's a character who could be that. No one has a TV for a head. There is a guy with a box for a head.
There's the doctor.
Yeah,
box,
but even that's but no one's a thing for a head except for our main character. And like I said, this anime takes itself very seriously most of the time, and so it just I've been describing it as a piece of sand in my bathing suit. Sand belongs on the beach. I'm absolutely fine with it. I like abstract characters in abstract anime. Kill la Kill, Fooly Cooly, all day long. Give it to me all day long. But having an abstract character design on our main character in an anime that's being very serious for the most part, I could not get past it. Like I said, I took a break from it. I came back with like fresh mind, and then it just hit me again. Like, man, and the biggest part is that handle sticking out of the back of his head. Mm-hmm. Now Jeremy's gonna tell you all the reasons it's fine, but they don't work for me.
Well, you made interesting points about like how everybody else is functional, but I do think that there are other characters that we see that have weird heads that just don't really make sense. Like what in the last episode we see, maybe it's even like the last 2 episodes of this season, we see these 2 women, at least they have women bodies, and they are they're in talking to the board members, and they've got like these weird towers for heads, and they've just got like there's absolutely no reason why they wouldn't have a face except that the board members chose to dehumanize them. And we have other characters where, like, especially when you really it comes from this corporation, their muscle all have the same face, where it's like it's a human face, but it's like got a big grin on it and everything. And so it's clearly like that face exists to serve a purpose, right? It's supposed to give you almost a false sense of being at ease, right? Where the big bodyguard is going to always have the smile on his face, but every single one of them is the same. And so in a way, by doing that, they've dehumanized humanity, right? So these faces, they do something with heads all over the place, where they're like, there's also the barber that has the box for a head. It literally looks like he's got a briefcase that his head is embedded in. So they do weird things here and there, but I will agree with you that like the majority of the population have regular heads. It is very uncommon to see these weird heads. And that's where I think that Juzo, they've given him a really good story reason for why he's got a unique head, right? He's part of what's called gun slave units. And this is a 2-man squad that was set up for the war, and he was designed specifically for the war. And he's a tool. He's not a person. And there's even a flashback where we see the person who was his handler literally saying, I made the mistake of treating you like a person. I should have treated you like a tool, right? Or maybe not I should have treated you like a tool, but just I made the mistake of treating you like a person and not a tool, right? And we see an example of another person who is a handler of another gun slave unit in the second half of this season. And we see how they're actually treated and how they actually behave. And they really are just a tool. They are not supposed to be independent. They're not supposed to exist without a handler. And so for him to be walking around on the streets, that's not what he was designed for. So when you mention that these prosthetics, right, these extensions are functional, he's very functional for the environment that he was designed for. He's no longer in that environment, so he appears to be, non-functional. It's like gimmick or something, but it wouldn't have been had it been that circumstance. Having the handle on the back of his head, that's because of it being that he's a tool. And another thing that I know drove you nuts, and I started cracking up when I saw it happen, because I was like, oh man, Troy's gonna love this, is like when he powers up into another mode, another handle comes out of his back.
a slightly bigger, and do you know why they do it? This is my biggest problem. He's so tall. Having a handle on the back of his head is insane. Unless
who's gonna grab it?
Right.
Yeah.
So they have a very no one can grab that. Let's have another handle pop out. Well, then what did you need that first handle for?
But
and
we
yes,
do see
it is fun. Yes, it works. I know it works.
Yeah.
I know that there's a guy who shoots. Really gets
it's a short girl that shoots it, and like she's got to be no more than 5 feet tall, and she shoots. No, she's the little sister of the nun.
Oh, you're thinking of the one that shoots 7. I'm thinking when Tetsuro shoots Juzo's gun.
Yeah, it happens twice. And in both cases, the gunslave unit kneels down, right? So that's where I would say that the anime has justified the presence of it, and I don't think that I don't think it's abstract enough to expect the entire anime to be abstract. And I have one other thing I have to say, and that is with Dorohedoro comparison. Dorohedoro is like, yeah, it's crazy, but the whole anime is like crazy magic, right? So in that anime, the craziness of his head on his body is justified by the rules of the anime. Even though we look at it and it's like, it's nuts, it's crazy. This is in the same way justified by the rules of the circumstance. So I would actually say that they're very similar. I wouldn't say that either one was more abstract than the other if you look at it as magic versus science fiction.
I think it would have been 100% better if they had taken the handle off and that it wasn't a gun that we know of, because this is such a high tech world, and they already have shown that like the projectiles that some of them are shooting are not exactly bullets. If it was like a like if it was like more of a rail gun head and then no handle and then only a hand could activate the back, that would have solved so many issues for me with the design and also story wise, because yeah, I mean, what if he gets caught up in a bunch of clothing and a hanger gets hooked in there and he goes to stand up and it fires, right? You know, like there's just there's so many issues.
Or why can't he do this?
Right. I can't pull my own trigger. It's like, well, actually, but like having the handle come out of his back and only having a hand be able to activate it, that made sense. That was cool. I actually really enjoyed that because they set it up as this is a 2-man team. But I think as far as like it being jarring, like after the first episode, it didn't bug me at all. And I think that I just attribute that to like playing a lot of Warframe, because there's a lot of characters in that don't have heads for heads, but
weird heads.
But no, I kind of agree with Troy that some of the decisions of that particular weapon was kind of dumb.
The sigh after I kind of agree with Troy. It hurts you to say it. I have one last question for you, Jeremy. Do you think what do you think came first, the character design or the reason for the gun for a head?
If I was the one making it, it would have been the character design first.
That wasn't the question.
Well, I'm guessing that they would have made it the same way I would have. Maybe that's, presumptuous, but
that was my
that's
assumption
what I would
too.
imagine.
Yeah. They came up with the character design first, and they built a story around it. Yeah. The reason I asked that is because the one thing I disagree with you is where you said they put in a good reason for it. No, they put in a reason for it just to make it kind of functional because they wanted the character design to look like this.
So what would be a good reason? What would qualify?
Like Jason said, I think they put in it's a good reason for the second handle to come out. But the fact that he looks like an actual modern day revolver with the handle out at all times, because I can even understand putting your gun where the head is, because hey, that now I don't have to aim wherever I look. I'm aiming. That actually kind of makes sense to me. But you can't fire unless someone is literally holding onto the back of your head, only the back of your head. We could have put it anywhere. We have the parts.
We have the technology.
Again, I can't see it as anything but an abstract, very thematic, matches the theme, and I do think they put in a story reason for it. I just don't think it's strong enough. And everyone else is, while there is, a lady with a tower for a head, there is a guy with a box around his head, but no one has a literal building head or a literal fire hydrant head. If there was, then I'd be like, well, that's this world. They put literal objects for their heads. He's the only one with a literal object for a head.
Well, you'd have to say his class of extensions are the only class with a literal object for a head.
I think
But
another thing that makes it buy it for me is they call him specifically overextended.
Mhm.
And that's because like his entire body is a machine. He doesn't like he's got a brain and that's about a human brain and that's about it. And he doesn't even remember past the war. So we're talking about a literal weapon designed for war that they were like, what do we do with this thing that's now claiming to be a person?
I think a big disconnect between you and me, Jeremy, is that you're looking at it from inside the anime, and I'm looking at it from like the creator's point of view. I'm mad at the creator for being like, I want this guy to have a gun for a head, but I don't want anyone else to have anything like that. Inside the story, it's fine. I'm not. I don't think it breaks the world. I don't think it doesn't fit in the lore or anything like that. And all your points you made about that are 100%. I agree with. But when I see it as a guy who designed this character and then built a very serious world around him, but didn't want to go back on his character design that was kind of silly or abstract. You be quiet, watch. That's where, and again, it's very subjective. It's me, obviously, because after talking with you, you have very good reasons and points. It's very subjective, but it was a sand in my craw the whole anime.
So I want to respond one little bit to Jason too, which was in regards to like why it looks like a revolver. I think that assists in making him look like a prototype, look like something old because he's retro. Because we do have another gun slave unit that doesn't have a revolver design. I'm guessing if we see the hood pulled back, he's probably looks more like an automatic pistol.
He's a Desert Eagle, I think.
Okay, yeah, and that that works too.
That was my assumption that I'm a revolver because I'm a prototype and you're a Desert Eagle because you were the mass produced version.
My issue is not necessarily that it's a revolver. My issue is that they decided to take handguns to be the design when we're talking about a futuristic world that doesn't necessarily need to fire bullets.
Well, they don't actually from the head. They do from the hand, but from his head, we never see bullet casings. We see lasers.
So, Jeremy, he's not talking from in the anime. He's talking from out of the anime.
Again, the question is, why does it have to look like a handgun if they're not shooting bullets? That's what handguns do.
Well,
but no, and that's not a question I want an answer to, by the way.
Well, but doesn't it like, okay, here's the thing. After seeing this character and enjoying the anime, even for just a handful of episodes, I'm inclined to have like a picture of that character. I think he's iconic. I think he strikes an image. I think he, really stands out as the face of this anime. He does a really good job at that. Like, I would love to have a shirt with this character on it. And we, Tanya and I actually went and we were looking at him to see, well, what did they do with this design? They could do so much with this design because it's got so much personality. Every time you look at him, you're looking down the barrel of a gun. Right? It's just there's so many. I think there's layers to how the character looks and the symbolism of what that says about interacting with him, about his view of the world, even just about the story and how it adds to all of those things. And I think if you took it away, well, you just have another noir story.
I actually absolutely agree with all of that. But the way I would fix it is make the other characters also with abstract designs.
I think you could do that, but I don't think it has to go that far. I mean, obviously, like you said, that's subjective. It's a creative decision. But I definitely am on the side of like having one character stand out as unusual, or even like a line of characters standing out as unusual. I can totally buy that because when you're making prototypes for something, you don't always make the best decisions. That's why they're prototypes. And, they may not be the thing that everybody's used to seeing because, well, it was a bad decision and it got phased out. So I'm totally fine with like a character showing up like that amidst pretty much normal designs, and then that character being like, I'm an old model and my body's terrible because of how old I am. And then I can excuse all the other design flaws because of that.
All right, we're going forward.
Okay.
That's the final word in it. So yeah, we meet Juzo. We see him do a very quick job. Basically, his work is he deals with problems that involve extended people. Whatever you need, whatever and he is a good person, so like he'll do the right thing. But if it involves extended, you hire him. You know, if you need a bodyguard, if you need a crime solved,
resolve your issues.
he's the revolver, guys.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh.
We see him. This anime starts with him passing after that first job. He passes a crime scene. He sees a nun there. He's like, "That's weird." He goes to his office and it's been broken into, and there's this giant robot extended security monster thing there, and is holding a child in his arms. And he's like, "Oh, you're the one who committed those murders that I saw at that crime scene." And the extended is like, "No, it wasn't me. I'm innocent." And the security force guy, these cops show up, and Juzo's like, "No, you can't come in. I'm not letting you come into my place." And the cops like, "If you're an overextended, if you get into trouble, you know that's kaputs for you. You have to toe the line." He has a license to exist right now, basically. Like, you're not supposed to exist, so you have a special license that we tolerate you. And then after he gets rid of the cops, this extended leaves the kid with him and then runs out. Juzo takes the kid, goes after him, and finds him fighting, or he finds the nun, and it's not a nun, it's a woman in a scantily clad bikini. Should also be mentioned that Juzo is very he gets very shy around women who are showing stuff off.
Yeah.
So yeah, she peels off her nun clothes. She's in a bikini, and she has an extension of an eye that can help her shoot her gun. He fights with her. The extended tries to help him, but eventually him and the extended end up falling. He gives the kid up so he can save this extended person, and they fall into the sewer. When he talks to the extended, he realizes the extended and the kid are the same person. This kid has had an experimental device placed inside of him, making him extended as well, where he can control other extended bodies. And right now he's operating this extended that everyone thinks is the murderer, even though we now know the nun was the murderer. And
actually, this is interesting because now that I've seen the whole thing, this is the only time that he controls extended parts that don't have a person inside them.
Yep.
Like, this was just a shell.
Yeah, this was yeah. Usually he like shoves your subconscious out of the way and takes over. This was just basically a robot body.
Yep.
And then the kid says, "Hey, thank you for listening to me and caring, but now they have me, so I guess I'll go." And he leaves the body. This is actually our second main character, Tetsuro, who he's going to go rescue here in a minute. Thoughts on Tetsuro?
I think his device is much more interesting than him as a person. I think he serves as the princess to be saved, and he's got a decent arc throughout the anime. I wish he was in a stronger position by the end, because when Juzo picks him up, he notices like the tendons in his legs have been cut so he can't run away, and this kid looks pretty malnourished, very weak. And so like when they do finally save him, and which we'll get to, like when they're taking care of him, he's got a really rough time. He can't really move his body parts very well. And by the end of the anime, he's just too weak to care about, except for his cool ability. And even then, he makes really rash decisions that you would think he would, like, being a young kid, okay, the first couple episodes, making rash decisions, that makes sense. But, like, learning from those mistakes, he doesn't seem to ever do. So, but yeah, his ability is super interesting in this world.
I kind of agree with you in the sense that he really he didn't leave a big impression on me. He certainly didn't stand out as much as Juzo or the mechanic. or even a lot of the other characters that came on screen. They were a lot more energetic, a lot more entertaining. But I did have a certain like sympathy for him. Like you pointed out, the things that he's gone through have been terrible, especially coming from the position that he came from. Right, he was the CEO's son. We find that out very early on, that he was the CEO's son of Baruran, which is that company, right? So how did this happen, where he winds up now being an experimental subject with this device in him, who's getting his tendons cut and essentially being tortured because the way that they make him use harmony to manipulate and control other things? Yeah.
Do we know for sure he is the son, or is that just what Baruin is claiming?
So he did have a flashback that indicated that because he was a traitor to it, he was losing his position and being put in with the subjects. So I'm assuming
not a good gear.
Yeah, he's not a good gear. So I'm assuming that that's more evidence to it.
Okay.
But I was also curious until that point where I was like, I don't know. But I think he is. But the reason that they were cutting his tendons is because to use harmony, you have to really, really want to move. And so they had to take away his ability to move. And so like the cruelty that he's gone through and really the torture he's gone through has kind of psychologically shaped him into a subservient person who's not going to really stand up for himself. And that's what we see in this first episode when Juzo gets to the train and rescues him. And he's like, come on, man, throw a tantrum. Stand up for yourself. Don't give in like this. Don't be so weak. And so I think that's a battle that what's his name? Tetsuro? Yeah, Tetsuro is having throughout this whole first season, is that, he's sort of half beaten down and half impulsive. And I don't think I agree with you about him not learning from his mistakes. Like he goes through a series of like, oh, that was really bad. I can't do that anymore. But I do think that he is impulsive. But I mean, it's a summoned body, right? So you just toss it away when you're done, right? That's when you go impulsive.
But again, that kind of brings up the issue, like the morality of like, because we established pretty early that there's a character that tells him, don't do that again. That, don't push me out of my own body. Mm-hmm. And he ends up doing it multiple times to different people that we just kind of don't care about. Right. And,
but not to
Juzo. It just doesn't feel like he learned much from it. Right.
Oh no. I think that the lesson was don't do it to Juzo.
No, that's not what Juzo said.
That's not, yeah.
You don't want to be a tool. I don't want to be a tool. You don't treat other people like tools.
Yeah, but that's the only thing he has. And it's certainly been something that saved Juzo's life. And Tetsuro wrote sorry on the ground afterwards. And as we know, sorry fixes everything.
Fixes everything.
I'm kind of in the middle of you guys there. I see what Jason is saying. I do think he starts using it only in like emergency situations, or trying not to do it as often or as free nilly-willy. But
and also to be clear, like story-wise, this is the only one in existence that works as intended. Like apparently there's some other prototypes that are like a one-time use, but like this is also highly illegal. Like this doesn't this should not exist.
Mm-hmm.
So my thoughts on Tetsuro is I can't stand him. This podcast has had relationships with child sidekick characters where we've been like, and I think it's a really hard, very tropey character to pull off. I don't think this is the worst I've ever seen, but it's so cliche. I don't want to be a burden. I want to help. Oh, I need to be saved now.
He's so whiny. He's so whiny.
Yeah, and the English dub voice actor was pretty whiny. So, like, in the last 2 episodes, he's not there, and I was like, oh, thank goodness. It's so much better without you. I like his mystery. His power is cool. I'm hoping he gets better, and that because I do think he's having a character arc right now. But so far, especially the episode where it's like all him, he takes over the body and it's just him. I was like, man, this is rough. I'm having a rough time caring about this guy. I hope Juzo smacks him out of his body so soon. Right. So Juzo had put a tracker on the nun. Her name is actually Karen. And
Oh, he put it in the ear of Tetsuro.
sure.
Yeah.
Either way, he tracks them down to a train, and he does super Delaware smash on it. Panzerfaust is it's called.
Something like that, yeah.
He also has a revolving barrel in his hand that he can spin and then power up a punch.
Or shoot.
And that actually does use bullets.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember,
No,
like,
no one disagreed with you.
okay, let's go.
And yeah, he stops the train with one punch. He gets one punch. He gets on the train, and
I had a huge problem with that scene.
that he could stop a whole train with a single punch.
Yeah, that he can stop a full train with one punch, and then there's just other scenes where he gets the crap beat out of him, and it's like, this guy's really inconsistent.
Yeah, it's a density issue, and I'm right there with you. Like, I don't know what his density is, because other things do seem to knock him out of the way.
You are my density. Back to Future reference, anyone? All right. So, yeah, Juzo defeats Karen and he rescues Tetsuo, and then he gets him back to his office. They hear on the news that Tetsuo is the son of the CEO of the evil corporation Baruin. So he takes him to a extension mechanic. I guess more mechanic. But this is the character Mary, who's a close friend of Juzo, who does his maintenance on his parts. We see her when she's like literally taking defective parts out of a girl and saving her from spasms, and they come in and ask for her help. Thoughts on Mary?
I really liked Mary. I thought she was funny. She's definitely I think one of the things that endeared me to her was the moments where she just let that door open a little bit from the wall that she keeps up at all times, where this world's really beating the crap out of her and she's having a tough time, but she always puts on this persona of positivity, and yeah, those moments just kind of really let the audience connect to her. But she serves not only a functional purpose for the story, but also she's that pushy sidekick character that's always trying to break down the barrier of the rough and tough character, and I thought she was written well.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. She was definitely my favorite character because of how entertaining that she was. I had a good laugh or a good sympathy moment whenever she was on the screen.
Yeah, I love her too. She's a great character. I think her most endearing part is when they're hiding in a dumpster, and the guy goes, "Something stinks," and she goes, "Oh, really? I took a shower 2 days ago." I don't know why that made me like it more, but it did. Yeah, so she's great. I love that she knows Juzo has a heart of gold, and so she's the one who makes him use it. Like if he ever, no, I'm gonna be tough. Oh, shut up and eat crab with us. Quit acting like you're so cool.
I'm moving in, and you don't have an option.
Yeah, I'm moving in. So yeah, big fan of Mary. And also that she can kind of be the more humanitarian side of the team when he can't be, because he has a gun for a face, and I'm actually saying that as a good thing because people are scared of him as a gun for a face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he asks her to hide him, and then he goes out to try to find some smoke. So this is where we learn his cigarettes that he has been chain smoking through this whole thing so far are actually medicinal. Because he's an overextended and has so many parts, his brains, his sub brains can't handle it, and he has to take really strong medication, which comes in the form of really strong cigarettes. And he comes across a character named Cunningham who's like, "Hey, we know you have the kid. We want the kid, or we're gonna ruin your life. And look, I've already bought every box of that cigarettes in town, and we'll give you the box if you give us the kid, or you'll never have these again, and then you'll start, dying.
I love the character design of Cunningham, by the way. He is
Oh my God, he's awesome.
epitome of corporate evil bad guy. Just the shape of his body, the look of his face, the way he talks. Just perfect corporate evil bad guy.
Totally agree.
Juzo gets free, and Mary actually saves him from a sniper, and they basically tell Cunningham off, and he has to run away, but he takes the smokes with him, and Mary actually
he's
has
like,
to,
hey, give them back.
yeah, don't take the cigarettes. Mary actually has to make him a custom with all the same ingredients, but they're like terrible tasting, but he has to have them. But now, yeah, all his cigarettes now, medicine comes from Mary at this point.
You okay, Jeremy?
My ants have escaped. I'm catching them while I'm. So one of my big formicarium colony that I have here, I was transferring it today, and apparently there is a hole large enough for them to escape through in the new environment. So I'm catching them, and I've
this
just
is my nightmare.
Yes, I have just patched the hole with a piece of paper to increase the thickness there.
Do you need a minute?
Nope. I can keep up. They're very small, so.
Just know if you're leaning off, we can barely hear you when you talk.
Okay, I'll make sure to talk straight on.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Juzo gets hired for another job, or actually, no, someone comes to him for a job. It's basically a high-level mafia member, and he tells him, hey, kids are being attacked in our district that we control, and we want you to take care of it. And Juzo's like, no, you're the mafia, take care of it yourself. What's it going to look like if the mafia hires someone to help them? But Tetsuro overhears this, and he knows that it's the Baruin Corporation, literally putting pressure on the area to make Juzo turn him over. And so he feels responsible, and he decides, I'm going to do something. And Juzo told me, to take care of things. So he steals Juzo's body, then starts carrying he picks up his own body, puts it in a bag, walks around town, almost gets mugged, so he puts on a mask or a sack over his head so people won't recognize him. And then eventually he runs into these two young women named Anne and Ende, and he thinks they're being attacked, but then he finds out, oh no, they're the attackers. They have been sent by the Baruin Corporation. They are also children who have been experimented on, much like Tetsuro was. And Ende basically turns into it's E-N-D-E?
Yeah, but in the dub they pronounced it like with a at the end. But
Edna. So she's basically turned into like this giant spider thing when she goes berserk.
That was so weird. Okay. If you want to talk about weird designs that just didn't seem like they would work, didn't seem to fit. In so many ways, that didn't seem to fit. That design just didn't work for me. I'm sorry, but where's she holding the bulk of that material? The bulk of the spider butt that comes out between her legs, that thing's got more body mass than her entire body. So where does it collapse into?
Her arms and legs disappear when she turns into that. So I assume her legs and her torso and her arms are not real, and that they just kind of fold out. Sure, there's a lot more. There seems to be a lot more mass, but if we were to assume, say, the abdomen part of the spider is more
hollow
of a shell than a shell with a weapon in it instead of functioning parts inside, that could be folded up. But unfortunately, when she transforms either way, it's just a flash of light, and then also she's a normal girl, and it's okay.
Yeah. That's what was so weird to me, is the transformation was different than everybody else, where you get, like you say, this weird flash of light. And then, the body size. You could be right. It could be hollow, but
that's the only way I could justify it.
So they attack Tetsuro, and he actually gets hit with a poison attack, but the Juzo arm moves on its own to stop it from being fatal, so it only goes into his arm.
No. So the poison was code, and it was meant to attack subbrains. And
Yeah, it's a
because
virus.
his is an older model, the code didn't work on him.
And the reason that he moved the arm was to protect Tetsuro.
Yeah, I was about to hit the basket.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we good?
Yep.
Was that really that different from poison? Like, you just need to know he was going to get incapacitated.
It
We're
wouldn't
doing
have
By
worked.
a virus.
We're doing the short version, guys. Yeah, then Edna loses control, starts rampaging through a restaurant. Eventually, they get her under control, and they're like, "I guess we'll go back." But then Cunningham shows up. He's like, "You guys did a terrible job."
Not being good gears in the machine.
Yeah, and then Tetsuro shows up, and he's like, "You guys, I'm gonna stop you from hurting these young women." And but then the Cunningham makes Edna transform again, and she
Partially evil girl be evil.
no.
She dies.
So here's why I'm stalling. Basically, there's just like verbal diarrhea coming out of Tetsuro about like, be a good guy, stand up for yourself, be a part of society. I don't know. There was a lot, and I was having a hard time carrying. And then But then the action starts up again because the girls are like, okay, we're going to not be evil. Let's try that. So Cunningham shoots Edna in the head so that she just becomes a mindless killing machine. She kills Anne. And then Anne's like, save her. Tetsuro
You really did not like this arc.
You're making it so impactful.
Oh.
Okay. As most people know, we had to delay recording this episode. I actually watched this way back. So not only was I not enjoying this episode,
You have to watch it twice?
no, I don't. I took notes and I only remember what's in my notes. Like I don't
fair
remember
enough.
the exact words Tetsuro said. I remember being really annoyed that he was.
Oh, he was so whiny in this part. Oh my god.
It wasn't justified at all to you that these kids were from the same type of environment as he was
No,
from, and
I
that's
get
why
his
he was
reasoning,
trying to...
but
Yeah.
his diatribe was whiny as all get out.
Okay, it's got to be the voice actor because in the sub I had zero problems with it. He didn't come across as
not only
blunt.
that, but it was the dialogue specifically, because I assume the dialogue in the sub was different than the dub, because his reasoning was shaky at best, and it was just whiny appeal to emotion. And it was just, don't be a tool.
Mhm.
Don't let someone else control you from the government or from the company. And it's like, I get it.
And it's also going on for me, it was also going on a very predictable beat. You know, Juzo's going to jump in here at some point and take over this fight. And I'm like, get on
Hurry
with
up.
it. Yeah, let's go to the thing that we all know is going to happen. Which does it. Tetsuro gets knocked out of the body. He tries to take over Edna's body, but he can only like stall her, and he gets the Xbox Red Ring of Death to show up. Which means your subbrain's overheating. And then Juzo wakes up, grabs him. They run to an elevator. Oh. This also made me frustrated. He's like, I'm throwing you in the elevator, and then you're going to go, and I'm going to defend. And he's like, no, you can't leave me. He's like, okay, I'll get in the elevator, too. And it's like, oh, that just feels like... It feels like wheel spinning. Like, just get on with it. Spider Lady attacks the elevator. Juzo says, you got to fire my gun. Tetsuro's like, I can't shoot her. He's like, you have to. Okay, I will. And then he does, and he blows her away, and a giant laser beam shoots into the sky.
This part bugged the heck out of me as well, because it was such a contrived situation just to get them in a position where Tetsuro had to shoot her with the gunslave. And it was just like, there were so many other options leading up to this point.
The guy can punch a train, but he couldn't violate too much. I guess he's slightly poisoned.
And also, like, aim for the subbrain. Well, the subbrain's in her neck. And so this energy blast goes through her neck. And she survives?
No, he didn't tell me aim for the subbrain. He said aim for the extra body parts. And so the beam actually went through that stuff that protruded. It went through her body. It didn't even
Troy,
go
do
through
you
her neck.
remember it all? Because I'm 100% positive that's what he
Again,
said.
this was 3 weeks ago for me.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
let's move on.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't bug me the way it bugged you guys. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah, I just remember like, and maybe it was other events, like regular life, but I was just like, go on and go on. And then the next story arc I was into, but this one I had a rough time with it.
I was happy because one of the girls died, and I don't know. I like it when it's
Wow.
Well, it's
Let's
not.
clip that.
Yeah, right.
You sure you don't like Hannibal Lecter?
Well, they didn't eat her, but I liked it because there was
Clarice.
she died. There was some recompense,
If she
for
dies, she dies.
yeah. It mattered. Like for me, that said, oh, the people that he sees in these pictures, they're not all just gonna get added to the team. Some of them are people they're one shots. They're gonna die, and who knows? So that means I don't know what's gonna happen when the stories come up. These characters could die. I like
Here's
that.
the biggest problem for me with this. We get introduced to these two characters we're supposed to feel sorry for because they're being controlled by the company, and then they're gone. And it's like, I don't care.
Yeah,
But I think that. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I agree with Jason. We talk a lot about on this podcast how we like it when there's permanent consequences. Characters die if they do dumb things or get in life and death situations. But introducing a character for the sole purpose of dying for drama does not carry that weight with me at all.
I don't think it's for the sole purpose of drama. I think it actually symbolizes the fact that this is a place that's ruled by a company that kills people all the time. Just because one person died, it really doesn't mean anything.
I think
So
the story is fine
Mhm.
if we had more time with the girls and we actually started to care about them. Because the one girl that died, her dying had zero impact on the story, on our main characters, and the audience, in my opinion. And then the girl that did survive, which I have no idea how, because that looked like the blast went straight through her neck. I could be wrong.
yeah, that's not what I saw.
We see her recovering after this, and then that's it. She's gone, and it just felt like very throwaway characters for a very
I
contrived.
forgot she survived.
We need to shoot
Yeah.
my gun.
I was
some
Tetsuo freaking out. We need to go on. So do hurry.
One last thing. I liked the fact that it meant these characters weren't going to become a harem. I was a little bit worried that we would have these characters introduced and then they'd stick around. And I was like, I don't want them to stick around because we don't need more characters for this. This is enough. So, I don't know. I guess I was worried about that. And so that metered it for me.
I think their eventual end was fine. We didn't have any time with them.
All right.
Anyways.
Going on. Mary adds new extensions onto Tetsuro's legs so that he can walk again. I do like that Tetsuro doesn't talk with a regular mouth flap. He just opens his mouth and then the robot head he carries on his waist talks. Except for in the OP where he's moving his mouth normal, and I'm like, no, he just
Yeah.
Okay. Mary talks to him about EMS, which is basically what would it relate to?
Extended management service or something like that. They're basically a government agency that makes sure that if there's any extended that are breaking the laws, they take care of them.
Yeah, they're military police basically.
Mm-hmm. Specifically for extended.
And Juzo walks away from a crab dinner because he doesn't like to hang out with people. He goes to get his gun cleaned, which is basically like a barbershop in the same building he lives in. He runs into the barber's daughter, who is being harassed by cops. Yeah, she has a crush on him. But while he's in there, basically the EMS come in. The gun he shot into the sky is a big deal. Like, people aren't supposed to see that. That's a big no-no.
Mm-hmm.
And so we meet Olivier, who is the head of the EMS, and she comes in and she's like, you did something bad, and now I'm going to have to cover it up for you, and so you're under arrest, and you're going to do something for me. and I really like how this scene plays out because it seems like he's in trouble, and then like Mary and Tetsuro come in, and oh no, they're in trouble too. But really, no, we're arresting them to protect them because you guys are all in danger. I'm on your side, and so they play off Olivia like, oh, here's a villain, but she's actually an ally. Thoughts on Olivier, who my only real complaint is that her lips are a little too big.
They're so pouty.
She was definitely my favorite character. She had, I think, the best arc as far as character development. I really love that her motivation in all this is, I didn't want my dad to die as a soldier, so I'm going to work my way up in the military to like not only find out what happened to him, but also change things from the inside at a high level. I thought that was brilliant story writing for her character. Made her interesting, and also that like because she's at such a high level, it's like she can kind of bend protocol just a little bit to get her way. And also her long, it's very obvious her and Juzo have a very long relationship together as far as like interacting.
Too many characters in this are attracted to gun faces.
See, that's a noir thing. That's another thing that I love.
She doesn't seem romantically attracted to him, though.
I didn't say romantically. I meant sexually.
Okay. Yeah.
No, she definitely uses him to her purposes, but she does have a soft spot for him as far as like caring for him as a person. But she definitely uses him to the best of his abilities to get whatever job she wants done. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this character.
Yeah, Olivier was awesome. I thought the same exact thing when I saw her. I was like, oh, another villain. Okay, what's she gonna be like? And then she surprised me. That was cool. I loved, like you were saying, Jason, how the reason that she joined the military. What cracked me up was her specific statement, like, I'm joining the military so I can fire you, Dad. Or not joining the military, but I'm working my way up in the government agency so I can fire you. That was really cool. Plus, she's got the weirdest fetish I've ever seen. And of course, it's not a fetish. It gets explained later, but initially it's introduced as a fetish. And it cracked me up so bad because, like, when she's stressed, she opens a can of cat food and smells the cat food. And it's like how bad it stinks makes her feel better. And that's what we believe for a long time until it's explained and we understand what's going on there.
I never thought fetish. I just saw stress relief.
Okay, you're right. Fetish may not be the right word. Maybe she's not sexually
attracted to cat food.
Yeah. Okay, it's the weirdest stress relief I've ever seen, right? Like most people have a squishy ball or something, but she opens cat food and smells it. Yeah, I really enjoyed her as a character. I don't know if I would agree that she had a great arc, but I definitely think that she had great satisfaction. Like she had a resolution to something. I'm not sure she changed so much. It was almost like she had a quiver for a moment where her character behavior that we normally see was shaken, and she almost did something she wouldn't normally, almost condoned something she wouldn't normally, but then she snapped back to it with some help to who she was before. But she's definitely the one who probably had the most, probably, great. I would say she's definitely the one that had the most resolution in this season. Like an issue from her past was resolved, and I don't think that was really true for anybody else.
I like the character, but I don't remember or really got connected where I was really caring about her resolution. I was really into the mystery that she presents, and this I really like this arc. But I didn't really care if she found her father's killer. I just didn't worry about that very much. I was really into who it was, but all right. Yeah, so she gives him the case file of no. She tells him 7 people escaped from prison. These extended. And he's like, "Well, I'm not going to."
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's like,
"Yeah, because they're from that special prison."
She says, "I'm not going to be. I'm not able to catch those 7." She's like, "We've already caught 5. We're about to catch 1 more. There's actually only 1 I need you to go get." Meanwhile, the 6th one, the one they're about to get, actually shows up, attacks the prison car with Mary and the landlord and Tetsuro and everyone's in it. The guy would like he hugs you to his chest and grinds you to death. And
Such a weird design.
they're saved by another character who's an underling of Olivier. His name is Cronin. He is a full human, but he specializes in throwing needles that hits the equivalent of pressure points on extended that blocks the energy or the power through their systems. And he can hit subbrains too. So this is Cronin. He drives a
Porsche?
Porsche?
Yeah,
I feel like
it
that's
was.
wrong.
I don't
Corvette? Is it a Corvette?
know. Not really a car guy.
Kind of looked like a Corvette shape.
Yeah, we do an anime podcast. We're not really. Anyway, he drives a really classic car. What'd you guys think of Cronin?
He was a great character. He's definitely that gruff, like noir. I'm gonna do justice no matter what the bosses or anyone else says, and I'm gonna do justice the way I see it. And you better follow the law, or I'll be there to stop you, kind of person. But I also loved that he refused extensions whatsoever. Like he's like, I don't need robotics to defeat you.
He definitely looks down on people who boosted themselves.
But I also thought his relationship with Juzo was pretty great. They were pretty much bros, but like not, but were. And like, so they always played on each other. Like there was never a moment of weakness from either of them. Like, oh, that's so unlike you. Oh, well, I'm just doing my job. But you could tell like there was definitely a relationship there of like got each other's back.
And I think that relationship developed over this arc as well. I had a very minor issue with the needles, but I'm gonna say it's very minor because his personality and how they used this character was really great, and so I kind of shrugged off the issue. But it does still kind of nag at the back of my head, which is like these characters are made of materials that in many cases deflect bullets. But he's got these rainbow colored needles that he's able to throw hard enough and fast enough. Like, what is that technology? This is like something I would make out of like a Star Wars role-playing character that I fan made or something. It's like, I don't know. It just, to me, that probably seems like the farthest thing away from the rest of the technology that I'm seeing. Everything else seems so grounded and chunky. And then you've got these magic needles that he throws. And I love it. It's really cool, but it's very confusing for me.
There's a guy with a revolver in front of the head, and you just said it was so grounded. All right.
It's grounded.
Yeah, and then his problem is needles.
Yes, needles.
That's a fair point, though. Cronin's probably one of my favorite characters. If it's not Juzo, it's Cronin. He feels like he could get his own spin-off of his own anime.
Cronin Files.
He's almost exactly the Dimension W character.
Yes.
I don't trust machines. I have an old gas car and I throw things. Attack.
I wonder if they were fans.
And every time he popped up in the OP, he caught my eye, and I kept wondering, like, is this going to be a good guy or a bad guy? And the fact that he's kind of a rival, and I'll put you down, Juzo, if I think you're out of line, but gosh dang it, I respect you. I enjoyed their relationship immensely. So yeah, I really like Cronin. So Cronin saves them, and then they go back to the EMS headquarters, and this is where we learn about the case file. So there's a assassin from, his name is Gondry, and we'll find out he's an assassin, but he's killing people ever since he escaped. There have been 3 kills already, and they're worried there's going to be more. They can't find this guy, and he's related to the, what is it called? The Nightmare of Norse Scott, which is kind of a big deal. And so this is why Olivier wants him brought in, so that she can put him on trial for that. We find out later that's where her father was murdered. There was this, and he murdered a bunch of people at that location. So Juzo goes out, and he goes to the third victim's house. It's a mansion. Guy's really rich, and he finds a picture of a military unit and realizes that Gondry was in it, and all the victims were in the same military unit. They were all overextended. He calls them basically his ancestors. They're like the early versions that eventually led to the gun slaves of extended humans. He gets in a fight with Cronin in the mansion, who's investigating basically the exact same thing. And they have a little bit of fight, and then Juzo points out, like, I'm not trying. And then he asks him for a ride, and so they go for a ride in his car, and they go to a statue unveiling for a guy named Toshala Mega Armed. This guy is Christopher Sabat does his voice, and he's doing his All Might voice. And so in the English dub, so he's a character who runs around talking about, I am a hero, and it sounds just like All Might, but he's in this like golden bureaucrat robot body that's kind of creepy looking, and you're like, that doesn't look like a hero to me. It was a really good play and a really good casting because the guy spouts All Might type lines, but isn't quite All Might on the inside.
Yeah, imagine All Might speaking through like one of those like voice changers that makes your voice sound robotic. That's basically it.
That would have been cool.
At this unveiling, we see the crowd loves him. Juzo sees a little girl who's like, "You look familiar, mister, but I'm not afraid of you." And then she runs off. This, we'll call him Armed. These kids are all being nice to him. People are giving him flowers, and his security is like, "Sir, we don't have time to talk to the crowd." He's like, "We always have time for the crowd." Gondry appears and attacks him, and Juzo stops him, ties him up, and so Armed runs away with that little girl in his arms because he was giving her a hug. So she brought him flowers. He runs away to protect her, and then when he gets off, Juzo realizes the Gondry we captured is not Gondry. It's a decoy. It's literally just a puppet. And the little girl actually turns out to be the real Gondry, who has hologram imagery skin on the back of his head, so he can look like anybody. And also, he's a bunch of tentacles.
Yeah,
basically.
I can do the same thing.
Yeah. So Juzo and Cronin have to run in there and fight him, and they're too much for him, so he runs away. And so they ask Armed, like, "Hey, do you know why this guy is trying to kill you, or what's going on?" And Arm's like, "Oh, I have no idea. I'm a hero." And then we see that Olivier, she has to answer to the board about what's going on, and they're like, "You hired like a private investigator to look into this. You're not supposed to do that. This was off limits to you."
It also seems kind of evil to me, but
yeah, totally.
Whatever. There's military councils. It's like, oh yeah, these guys are horrible.
They're like, they have evil grins and yeah. Ugh.
Nothing's more evil in storytelling than just councils. They don't even have to be a council of anything, just a council. We never know what they're doing. So she's suspended. So Cronin gets new orders that he's not allowed to be helping with the case, and he tells this to Juzo. He's like, "I'm off the case. I'm gonna go walk down there." And he walks down there. It's presented much better than that, but I'm just setting it up. And then, hey, the bad guy comes back because the needle throwing guy is gone. So him and Juzo...
This was really weird, and I still don't really understand what he did or how he did it. But he literally comes out of
the back of
Juzo's trench coat.
Yeah,
out of his trench coat. And I'm like, were you hiding under the trench coat? Were you hiding in the trench coat? Like, I don't understand to what degree your extensions allow you to be malleable.
Like he's coming out of like a shadow dimension, but that's not what he's supposed to be able to do. He's just a hologram face.
Yeah.
Anyway, they fight. They have a big stamina battle, is what Juzo calls it. We'll see who gives out first, your brain or my brain. And it's the bad guy's brain, and it starts with the red ring of death, and he runs away down the tunnel.
Oh, that was right, because Cronin didn't know where his brain was because he was an older model.
Yeah,
so he's like, I can't hit him with needles.
Yep. Anyway, Cronin didn't leave. He's down the tunnel just waiting, and the guy's flying by, and his red ring is on his subbrain is blinking, and so he throws a needle at him and takes him down. And Juzo's like, hey, good. I was hoping you didn't actually leave. And let's make the arrest. And they're carrying him out and they're going with armed. Um, and then we find out that it's not, the guy is actually not controlling himself. He's actually being harmony, just like what Tetsuro does to take over people. It's called harmony by two people who are named Pepper and Seven. Pepper is the sister of the evil nun lady from the first episode, and Seven is a Desert Eagle version of Juzo. He's also a gunslave. Thoughts on these characters?
I find them interesting, and I'd like to learn more about them. She's definitely crazier than her sister, but for some reason they both need to wear bikinis that barely cover them. But
Runs in the family.
Yeah, right. I do love the extent of her craziness, though, because she is creepy crazy, which kind of offsets the bikini thing, because you're just like, ooh, shit, no.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I do find the Seven to be fascinating because the voice is much younger sounding, and also it doesn't seem like this gunslave was in the war. Seems like a newer model. And so the gunslaves aren't supposed to be being created anymore. So like what's up with that? Oh yeah, and Pepper has a hand for the pair.
Which is also a big no-no. Like,
Yeah,
Juzo cannot have a partner. That's not allowed.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of that. I enjoyed her as a character. She was a great villain. I mean, especially when she like leaned in and licked Juzo's face. Like, they really amplified this. Yeah, like she fits up there, like just barely. She's not quite high enough to be like Beetlejuice or something, but she fits up there with those crazy villains that I like so much. And Seven reminds me of basically Edward Elric's little brother. Like
Yes, thank you.
That's him.
I got very much Alphonse vibes out of him.
Yep.
But on the bad guy side.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like he doesn't want to be a bad guy. He doesn't see himself as a bad guy, because there's a moment where he even stops her from using a weapon because it might harm somebody else. Right. And so yeah, I'm very intrigued with where they're going to go. Why did he stop her again? I'm a little fuzzy on that.
Harmony. It was actually Tetsuro took him over and stopped him.
Oh, you're right. That's what it was. Yeah. So would he have? He probably wouldn't have.
No, he. It's not that he's evil or wants to kill these people, but he also isn't a good guy, and that I think he just wants to do whatever makes Pepper happy.
He wants candy.
Yeah, which I also think is his medicine instead of cigarettes.
Oh, you're probably right. That's good.
Yeah, Seven I think is, and aside from the gun head, same issues. But I like that he has like the big axe on the backs, but it's actually hers that she uses to open up his back to pull out the super weapon. I thought that was really cool looking. I like Seven. Pepper, we'll wait and see. She's a little crazy for my taste, but I like that she's kind of the wild card in the evil corporation's plans, though, where they're like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. She's like, nope, I'm going to go see that guy right now and see if I can kill him, just for fun. Yep. All right, so yeah, we find out that she's been controlling this assassin the whole time. And so Gondry actually awakens and they have to tranquilize him, but he's like, where am I? What's going on? And Armed is like, oh, they're going to figure out the truth. I guess I have to kill them all. And he knocks out Cronin and he starts attacking Juzo. And they have a bit of a battle, but Juzo's already really hurt and not doing well.
And also, he hasn't had cigarettes in a while.
I was about to say he's run out of smokes, which Mary has pointed out to Tetsuro. So Tetsuro has taken over an EMS agent and taken Olivier kind of hostage. It didn't seem like it at first, but then later we see him pointing a gun at her to go deliver cigarettes to Juzo. So they're on their way to the scene. Arms and Juzo fight. Juzo gets hurt and then he gets his neck snapped, but then he goes into his battle mode. Because they do say one of the things that the drugs also do is keep his memories kind of suppressed, so he doesn't have to deal with the horrors of what he is. But with those memories coming back, he goes into weapon mode. But he has no one to pull his trigger. But he does have a defense mode when
that was awesome.
Armed is like, well, I guess you can't attack, so I'll attack you. And then the he has like a girl computer voice. It's like defense mode activated. They fight more. Eventually, Armed comes out the victor, but Olivier is now there, and she's like, "Are you the one responsible for killing my dad?" And he's like, "Yeah, I kind of am. You know, we were all part of this unit. Things went down, weren't supposed to. We covered it up. I have to remain a hero. That's what heroes do." And then Tetsuro brings the smokes, but Juzo's going crazy, and then Juzo collapses. There's a lot of Juzo's down, Juzo's not down, Juzo's down, Juzo's not down.
Yep.
But it ends with Olivier. She smokes the cigarette, blows the smoke into his mouth. He saves her at the last second, and then he doesn't kill Arms, even though she wanted him to, because she had originally made him promise to bring him in for justice.
Just incapacitates him.
EMS agents run in. She opens cat food to make them.
Which obviously must have been some weapon of hers.
Yep. So she.
Oh
she's
God,
like,
the smell!
she gasses them so that Juzo and Tetsuro can escape. She basically everyone that else gets arrested. She tells Armed, "I recorded all your confession. I've already sent it up to the higher ups." He's like, "Who do you think set this all up?" We also learned that the very first murder was committed by Armed, because that guy wanted to talk, and then to cover up that murder, they let the Gondry escape, forced him to start committing murders to seem like he had murdered everybody. We had gotten a clue earlier in the morgue where they said this guy got punched really hard, and that seems to be what killed him instead of sliced open. So Armed was the original killer, and everything else was just cover up. I thought that was a really good twist. Mm-hmm. They did a good job of pacing out the mystery, and that it all wrapped up so nicely. But then Pepper and Seven shoot a super laser blast from Seven's head, and it destroys the truck. Everyone's dead except for Olivier. She survives. We learn from phone calls. Yes. We don't see her.
Yeah, like that was the last time we see her is in the back of the truck.
Yep. And that's how that episode ends.
Maybe she'll have more extensions when we see her next time.
Right. Then we see the Baruan Council, whose names are Honest, Strange, and the two weird robot ladies, Matilda and Imelda. Cunningham basically comes before them and reports, and he's like, "Hey, we fixed it." And they're like, "You're terrible at your job." We would kill you.
Squeeze.
Yeah, we would turn you into a robot, but your body's too fat and stupid to use. Yep. So they yell at him, and he goes out and he yells at Pepper and Seven, and then Pepper's like, "Well, screw this. I'm gonna go see that Juzo guy." And so she goes up. Then we meet. Yeah, Mary moves in, and then a boy comes to see her. A young man. His name is Colt, and he's an person that she's worked on before. He's a very poor guy. In that meeting, we had heard, "Hey, the new subbrains are hurting people," and they're like, "Yeah, just take care of the families." And then we find out Colt's mother had been one of the people who got the experimental subbrain. She's now not being taken care of, and so he's in need of money. For payment, he brings an arm that's marked Victor. This doesn't really pay off in this storyline so far, kind of. We find out Victor is Mary's brother, and her reason for doing everything is to find her brother. And then we later find out that Victor is involved with terrorists, and tells Juzo, like, "I'm coming for you," or something like that, or "It'll be good to see you again."
Wait. Is Victor also the name of his handler?
No.
Oh, okay.
You mean the guy that Juzo interrogated?
No, the guy that was originally his handler.
Colt said he swiped the arm from a black market. He stole it.
No, I paid attention to the subtitles. I actually had English subtitles on when I watched this, and the guy's name was not Victor. The guy in the cowboy hat that was driving the truck. I know who you mean. What did you say, Jason?
The guy who made the arm. Oh, we're not talking. Wait, are we talking about the lady's or Mary's brother?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Colt for payment for services, he brings her an arm that he later reveals he stole off the black market. It has Victor's mark on it. Mary says, "The whole reason I'm doing this job or getting involved in all of this is because I'm trying to find She says an engineer, but we find out later it's her brother that went to war
So-
and she hasn't seen since.
So her brother was Juzo's hand?
No, I was wrong. I thought they
Oh,
might have been
okay.
the same person, but nope.
Now, Victor's not involved in the terrorist plot, is he?
Yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
How did we find that out?
So Juzo in this storyline it gets tasked to find Colt's handler and interrogate him. He does. He gets information on him. He turns him over to the cops. As the cops are taking it away, he says, "Hey, by the way, Victor," or he's like, "Give me a name." He's like, "His name was Victor," and he said to say hi to you.
That's right.
So Victor knows Juzo. Victor is Mary's brother. He's somehow involved in all this. Colt's story is that he has been hired to do a terrorist bombing. This will be able to feed his family and bring money to them. He meets Tetsuro, who busts him for stealing something that Mary had set out for him to steal so she could track him. But he's so impressed by Tetsuro's harmony ability to take over bodies, he's like, "Hey, you should help me with this job." He has been hired basically to get these government officials onto a train and then blow up the train. Mary and Tetsuo, this is where they go hide in the dumpster. They're trying to figure out what he's doing. Tetsuro ends up taking over a guard's, an extended security officer's body that had caught them. And then he uses that body to kind of try to help, but also stop Colt at the same time as they're attacking the train. A security guy comes out and is like, "Yeah, we knew this was going to happen. We don't have any officials on the train, but we did make sure to pack it full of innocent civilians, children, and all that kind of stuff. So we can blame you on the news that you are a terrorist who did horrible things." And Colt's whole thing has been like, "Yeah, I'm doing a terrorist thing, but only to the bad guys. No one's going to get hurt."
Yeah.
So he runs to go. He had already set the, triggered on the bomb, and then he goes to get it off, and they're like killing him as he's doing it, plugging him full of bullets. He grabs it and he goes to throw it, but then his subbrain fries right at that moment. So Tetsuro uses the robot body he's in to save him and throw the bomb, and they save him. And then Colt.
And Tetsuro does it by like going into an overcharged state with the body too, because it wasn't supposed to be able to move like that.
Right. We see they come in later that he has burns on his cheeks now from using it. And then Colt's like, they're like, "Oh my god, we gotta get into a hospital." He's like, "Hey, I'm fine. Really? Can you take over my legs and walk us home?" So technically, Colt's the one walking, and he's carrying Tetsuro, but Tetsuro's doing the walking. And they go back to his home, and then when they reach his house, he sees his two sisters in the house, and he dies. That was a very short version of what happens over these 2 episodes.
Yeah, I thought it was really confusing because if his subbrain fried, and that's why he dropped the... maybe it didn't fry. Maybe his subbrain just was like red ringing, and so it wasn't completely gone. Because I was trying to figure out how did he use harmony to control something that had already fried.
No, I don't think it fried at all. He probably got a bullet in the spine.
That makes sense.
If you use harmony, wouldn't you then be using your own subbrain instead of their subbrain?
Nope, you're remote controlling into their subbrain.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. At the end of this episode, Juzo returns to his office and finds Pepper and Seven in there. And
This exchange is great, by the way.
This exchange is great and very Noir. I love when she picks up his book and she's like, "You didn't write your name in this. Somebody could steal it. I won't though." It's very cat and mouse, It was good. It was good. And then he starts fighting Seven. Seven goes into his battle mode. We see that Pepper has the gun hand that can control the gun units. Even when he first goes into battle mode, Juzo still is puts him down, but then he goes into hardcore mode and knocks him out of the building and takes his whole arm off, shoulder off.
Blows his shoulder off so bad that they just have to.
They have to take the arm.
It was crazy too, because when he gets him, he's like, "Oh man, he's fast."
Yeah.
And he gets mad at them because they literally destroyed 2 of his cigarettes.
Yeah.
But they stop fighting when Tetsuro and Mary show up, and Tetsuro stops. We talked about it earlier. Tetsuro stops Seven. It has Seven stop an attack from Pepper, and they're like, "Oh, that's that guy. We need to go."
Well, and also like too many witnesses were starting to pop up because they were making a bunch of noise.
So yeah, Pepper and Seven leave, and Cronin and EMS come and investigate the scene, and Cronin kind of gives them some tips that are like, "Hey, we know that this kind of stuff is happening, and also no one's now looking for the search for the CEO's son has been silently called off. Isn't that weird?" And then after this, the enemy's like, "Okay, we're gonna take a break for some."
I'm pretty sure they're setting up the next season.
Sure, but like
I
this
do
was like
agree
an
it was
episode
weird.
7 episode.
Yeah, I agree. This was a weird order.
So a man named Danny comes and he's with the Justice Department and he wants to hire Juzo to help a young woman who's being haunted by an extended ghost. That's how it's set up. And so Mary locks Tetsuro into the apartment with an electric door so no one can get to him. And then she's like, "No, but you're taking me." And Juzo's like, "I don't need your help." She's like, "Too bad. I want to see a ghost." So they go out to the countryside, which I didn't even realize there was a countryside.
Right?
Point.
Yeah.
And they go to a mansion. All right, the story of Rose. Rose's parents were killed recently in a car crash. How would you guys describe this?
Apparently,
Obvious?
Rose's dad found out some information that made them targets, basically for Baruin, and to silence them, somebody makes them get into a car accident, which they were probably hoping to kill the whole family. And it's assumed that this disembodied hand comes through the windshield to do just that, and that traumatized the girl. So also these apparitions, and they think the hands are related to the apparitions, seem to be chasing people throughout the house, specifically her, even though she can't run because she only has one leg, because extendeds are the devil. And so, that's the story they give Juzo in order to get him there to, hunt for this apparition.
So yeah, Danny basically points out to Juzo, like, it's clearly not a ghost. Look, there's footprints down there. Someone's been sneaking around the mansion looking for something. But I need you to figure out who that is, and while I try to convince her there's not a ghost. They talk to the girl. She's only got one leg now from the accident, and she's upset that there's an enhance in her house. So Mary takes care of her. Meanwhile, Juzo sees 2 flying spirits, and he's like, "Hey, there's the ghost." He goes and he chases them down, and it's 2 disembodied hand enhanced.
And not like human hands, they're extended hands. They're robots.
Right.
But they look like human hands. They're robotic versions. Yeah.
I do like the way they turn into like creatures.
Dogs.
Yeah, little
like little
dogs
T-Rexes or something. Yeah.
Or cats. Something like that. So he goes and he catches them and he's like, "Okay, I figured it out." Meanwhile, while she's like mid sponge bath, Danny breaks in. He's like, "Mary, we gotta go right now. I'm taking her away." And Juzo walks in. He's like, "Yeah, that's probably not a good idea." But he's got the 2 hands sitting on his shoulder. He's like, "These were the ghosts. You've bugged this room. You were involved in all this. I figured this all out now. We know you're the bad guy," which also was super obvious. At one point, Danny grabs Mary. He's like, "Is your father hiding anything?" Nope. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for scaring you.
Yep.
Like, obvious bad guy was obvious.
Yep. And I think his eyes are closed the whole time too, and it's like,
yep.
Not the best mystery. But Mary goes, well, not Mary. Rosa says, "Well, you're an enhanced, so I don't believe you." So he runs out with her. She has like a shawl over her upper body. She's naked. And he puts her in his car and they go driving down the highway. Yeah. And he's like, "Thank God you didn't believe that enhanced." She's like, "Well, I also don't believe you." And she pulls a gun on him. And he's like, hey, look, your necklace you have. That's what I was looking for. That has the data. And so he like swerves and she falls over because she only has one leg. He takes the gun and he starts loading. He's like, yeah, I killed your dad. But it's your dad's fault, really, because we had that data was going to prove that enhanced were evil and he wouldn't let me use it. And then he goes to kill her, but one of the hands snuck into the car and sacrifices itself to save her. Meanwhile, the other hand is telling Juzo and Mary on this super cool motorcycle how to find them. And they get there, and he catches Danny. He turns him over to the cops, and he says, well, since I'm not getting paid, I'm taking the data as my payment.
He like yells it as loud as he can.
Yeah, apparently he can yell so loud he hurts people's ears.
Yep.
But
First
he does
time
that.
I saw that.
Yeah, he does that so no one will go after Rosa anymore trying to get the data, so they'll know he's the target. And then they go home and they can't decrypt the data because it's on such an antique device. And the hand now it wants to live with him. Lights a cigarette for him.
Which this was so obvious as soon as and I could see it a mile away as soon as the one hand got shot. It's like, oh, they're not a pair anymore. Juzo's got one hand. There's one flying hand left.
Plus, did you guys notice in the intro?
Yeah, the camera.
I've been waiting for that. Like I
Me
kept
too.
noticing, like, what is there a guy behind there I'm not seeing?
Yeah.
I felt like I was missing it, and then hands.
One of these.
Yeah. And it's also in the ending. Mary's sitting with it, and it's on her table. In one of the shots, yeah.
I remember seeing a picture. I don't know if it's the same picture, but I remember seeing a picture where it looked like Mary's arm was like folded up, and I was trying to figure out what was going on there, but that was this arm there too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in the ED as well. Any thoughts on this storyline? This is the end of our first 12 episodes.
I was so confused why they put this episode here, but it was all right.
So now we have data we can't collect. We don't know who sent the hands to protect her.
Well, it was obviously her dad.
That's what we're told.
Yeah,
but we don't know if it's true.
Yeah, and why exactly? We don't. This adds to the conspiracy. I do think this will play into. I wouldn't even be surprised if this character comes back because I do think this adds to the main mystery. And also, it's October, and having a ghost story in our noir robot story, I was like, sure, why not?
Why not?
Weird to end the season with it, but let's. The episode ended, and my wife goes, "That's the end." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's anime. It's episode 12. There's more."
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Let's go on to final reviews then. Jeremy, you picked it. Give us your score.
I really liked it, but I didn't like it enough to give it a 5. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I do agree with a lot of the criticisms about just the general story, especially that last episode, but how sometimes there's weird little plot holes or things weren't used in the most optimal way. The more I think about it with those two girls, you guys are right. They kind of did go for a cheap drama there. That's true. It's just little things like that have piled up. I couldn't give it a 5, but I would definitely still give it a 4. And I'd say if you like cyberpunk stuff, if you like noir, and you're okay with having that noir kind of be poked fun at a little bit, then yeah, definitely throw it on your watch list. It's fun.
All right, Jason, what'd you get?
I'll definitely agree. It was fun, and it was had an interesting storyline. I'm super interested in the world, like where who did they go to war with? Why were they at war? How big, how widespread was the war? Was it multiple countries, city-states, the world? There's a lot of unanswered questions that don't particularly take away from the story, but it would be cool to find out. Some of the characters were a little weak, but Juzo's storyline is fun. But there's lots of just cliche, not exactly imaginative storytelling. I think the art style was more imaginative than the actual storytelling, but the mysteries were cool. So it's really middle of the road for me, so I'm going to give it a 3.
It's a 3 for me also. the arcs that really focused on Tetsuro, I'm realizing both the ones I really complained about, which are the one with Colt, I wasn't a big fan of, and the one with the Spider Girl. They both were Tetsuro's arcs, and I wasn't really into them, and I just didn't like the character very much. Juzo's storylines, his arcs, especially the mega armed one, I really like those. I love the Noir thing, so I'll get past the gunhead. And honestly,
Embrace it.
it's actually not affecting my score. It's one thing. If it's telling a good enough story, I'm not going to care. But yeah, so it's a 3 for me, just because it's been a little hit and miss with the story arcs. But I think the central story that we're seeing has been good. So I'm excited to see that resolve. Which segue we'll be doing in our next episode. We'll be doing episodes 13 through 24, or season 2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we'll be watching and talking about. We'll be finishing that. And if you have any thoughts on No Guns Life, please don't spoil us on what's coming, but you can leave us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast and our email. Jeremy, what's our email?
The anime Baka Club at gmail.com.
He did it!
Yes!
He did it!
Yes!
Guys, he literally asked me that this week, and I'm like, I say it every episode. Or you can leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and we'll get back to you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we got to get going.
Oh, bye. See you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Sayonara. Jason goes first. What are you doing?
I know.